49er Faithful, welcome back to the Niner Station. Here we are. It's a little bit late, but we're going to do an instant reaction type episode talking about our last matchup against the Seattle Seahawks, which was a must-win, and the Niners came through. We're lucky to see the Niners come into the AFC matchup against the Chiefs at 3-3, and hopefully we can come away with another win, but all we want to do today is talk about the last game and how it might have brought us back into contention. The Niners were making us all feel like we couldn't do it, but after the game against Geno Smith, who was the number one passing quarterback in the NFL going into the game, here we are with the victory. So Ryan and Mark, how are you guys?
Tommy, Mark, we're doing good, and it's a whole different vibe coming onto the podcast following a win, and it was a much needed win, but it's always a good win getting a victory over the Seahawks. It actually makes it our sixth straight win over the Seahawks, including playoffs, but a good win nonetheless. So happy to talk about it, and let's get into it, boys.
Yeah, what's up, guys? It's always good to talk to you guys after a Niner victory. It was definitely a must-win game, and it was very good to see the rookies perform in this game and set the tone maybe for the youth movement going forward once Brock gets paid and the years going forward. But for this year alone, this game was a must-win, and the Niners pulled it out just like they needed to, and they've set themselves up for a place where they have a chance to make the playoffs and make a run. So curious to see what you guys think about this Niners Seahawks victory.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, all of us would much rather be 4-2 going into the next game, but 3-3 is acceptable, right? I mean, must-win game definitely happened. Moving forward, though, obviously, our NFC matchups have been terrible, right? Getting a win against an NFC team finally puts us in contention because we hadn't had a single win against an NFC team. So if people aren't aware, for our Niner Station listeners, thank you so much for liking and subscribing. But when it comes down to tiebreakers, we didn't have any wins. So this was our first win against an NFC team. So now it puts us a little bit into contention. I have a lot of thoughts about this game. Obviously, as a must-win, it's kind of hard to talk about it a few days late. I saw a few things that kind of irked me, kind of bothered me. One, why are we still letting Campbell play middle linebacker? Why are we still letting Isaac Yiadom play outside on corner when we have rookies, like you said, Mark? We have Renardo Green. He is awesome. He's a playmaker. Let's let him play more. We have guys like D. Winters. Let him play more. Because when they get in the game, all of a sudden, we look like the normal 49ers. We look like a great defensive football team. Brock Purdy, absolutely amazing. I think that was his best game of the season. It is incredible how so many podcasters, ESPN, all these analysts have now finally jumped on the Brock Purdy train. They're now starting to believe because after so many games of Brock Purdy extending plays and making things happen with injuries, because going into the season, it's Brock Purdy's only good because of the scheme, and he's got the Avengers. He's got Kittle. He's got Debo, Ayuk, McCaffrey. Well, McCaffrey's not playing. Debo had a great game. Ayuk didn't really do much. Kittle did great, but you guys can totally understand what I'm saying is the tone has changed in the media about Brock Purdy finally, I think, after this game. And if you watch it, there was the Baldy breakdown about Brock Purdy extending plays, and it's insane because he broke down this one play where they're in cover two. Brock steps up into the pocket, steps back into the pocket, breaks the tackle, extends the play, completes the pass. And they were talking about how when Brock Purdy is able to create space, he's creating exponential space on the defensive end if they're in cover two, which most NFL teams have switched to. So what I saw is Brock Purdy played a hell of a game. But what do you guys think about Brock Purdy's play so far and how he's evolved? I mean, obviously, as the Niner Station fans would know, we're big fans of Brock Purdy. But as Niner fans, we can all kind of agree that the general media consensus is he was only good because Kyle Shanahan was his coach, because that was the situation with Jimmy Garoppolo. That was the situation with whoever was playing with other quarterbacks playing. But now, no one is saying that Brock Purdy is only good because of Shanahan. How do you guys feel about Brock?
Tommy, I think you captured it pretty well. It cannot be stated enough, just the importance of Brock Purdy and what he means to the team. Obviously, here at Niner Station, we talk about it every single week, and it's just been cool to see the progression, especially like you said, with the media finally getting on board as the weeks go on. Brock putting on performance after performance. This one was a great game. 18 of 28 pass attempts for 255 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's an amazing game. And I think one thing that stood out to me as I was watching it was I remember so many years when we would all watch football together back in college where we would have a great defense, Patrick Willis, you name it, but we would always be playing Russell Wilson, and we would always collapse the pocket, bring the pressure, but somehow he would always escape and make a play. And now it's cool to be on the other side of that, playing Seattle, having a quarterback when things break down, he's able to run out and make a play. And it's been not only entertaining to watch, but he's been playing some really good football out there. And obviously we talk about it, it's a contract prove it season for Brock, and I'm just happy with his performance, and he keeps proving it week after week. But if he can keep on building after this performance, you know, we still haven't seen the best from Brock yet, which is crazy to say.
Yeah, Ryan, you hit the nail on the head. Brock Purdy is the Russell Wilson of the 49ers now. We went through all those years of not being able to beat the Seahawks because of Russell Wilson, and Brock Purdy brings that same dynamic to the Niners offense that Russell brought to the Seahawks offense pretty much our whole college and, you know, post-college career, where he can make a play with his feet, and when he makes a play with his feet, he's looking to throw the ball. And then when he doesn't throw the ball, he can also get some yards. On that first drive of the game, he had 2 key scrambles, one for a first down and another for a few more yards. Like, when there's pressure in the pocket, he's quick enough to make sure that he can get out of there and find a way to make a play for the offense. And he's so fun to watch. Any haters that are out there for Brock Purdy nowadays are just people that are just reaching for something, because when you watch Brock Purdy, you can clearly tell that he's a top 5 quarterback in this league, in my opinion. And he is a guy that's going to be able to lead us for the next, hopefully, 10 years, as long as he can stay healthy and make sure that, you know, everything goes right. But I see him being the finally in our lifetime for the 49ers. We have a franchise quarterback. We weren't there for the Steve Young years. We were very young. We weren't there for the Joe Montana years, but finally, maybe we have a franchise quarterback in Brock Purdy, and it's a guy that you couldn't help to root for. Just a high class, high character guy, and just plays the game how the game is supposed to be played. And so watching Brock Purdy on Thursday night was extremely fun. I had to rewatch it because I had a youth football practice, and when you have that opportunity to kind of watch the game knowing the outcome, you can see the nuances in the way that he plays the game, and you can rewind the tape and kind of see some things. And he's just a straight baller to me. Another aspect of the offense that I noticed was once Jordan Mason went out, Gurindo got a lot more carries. And I'm not saying Gurindo is this guy, because he still has a lot to prove, but Gurindo gave me Mostert vibes. He's a guy that runs high, he's fast, but if there's a crease, he's going to hit it. And so from what I saw from Gurindo in this game was a possible explosive player in the backfield that we don't have currently without McCaffrey. Gurindo can bring that Mostert type explosiveness to this offense in the run game, and I liked what I saw out of him once he got his opportunities when Mason got hurt. What do you guys think about Gurindo?
Well, obviously, same number. So it makes it a little easier to think about seeing number 31 hit the crease. But, I mean, yeah, Gurindo, I think he's really raw as a running back. He didn't have any opportunities to really start in college. And we took a chance on him in the 4th round, I think. And I will admit this, multiple times in the 49er Station podcast, I have talked about how this is a classic Kyle Shanahan running back
bust.
Yeah, running back bust. We've done it with Joe Wilson. We've done it with Trey Sermon. We've done it with JDP. I mean, we've done it every year. And I just thought that we were repeating the pattern, right? It's like a guy that Kyle Shanahan, there's not a lot of film, right? He wasn't a starter. So my thought is Kyle Shanahan saw him go, this guy ran a 4.3 40 and he's 230. Yeah, I'm taking him. And, like, they didn't really do much research. But we're starting to see this year that with the carries that Garendo's getting, he's not only a solid RB2, but if he has to be RB1 if Mason can't play, we're really not going to lack a lot. Like, we're not going to get the same production as Mason. We're not going to get the same production as McCaffrey, guaranteed, but we're not going to really lose a lot. I think if Garendo has to start for a couple games if Mason can't play, because he's proven that he can hit the hole. And then again, he had that 70-yard run where he got tackled or slid, whatever you want to call it. He didn't get the touchdown at the end of the game, and I felt for the first time when he hit that hole, I go, Mostert would have done this. Like, it's very similar. And then again, like I said, when you see number 31 running, in your head as a Niner fan, you're thinking Raheem Mostert. Like, but he did it. He did it. He lived up to the expectations. It's only his, like, we're talking about a player that's didn't start in college and then is now having the potential to be the starter for the Niners. So next week will be really telling, I think, if he can do similar, which I do believe he can, based off his skill set and his physicality. I think the ceiling is really high and the floor is also high. But what I saw, I have confidence, is where I'm going with this, is I have confidence that Isaac Garendo, in a situation where we are likely in with Jordan Mason with a shoulder injury, because we were winning the game. Jordan Mason still came out in the second half injured and started. And then all of a sudden Jordan Mason comes out and Isaac Garendo goes in because Kyle Shanahan thinks that we have enough of a lead to win. Classic Kyle Shanahan mistake, believing in your previous production to bring you home the win. But yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like Isaac Garendo might not be that bad of a backup RB3. And we're very fortunate in the NFL. Having a third running back that can come in and produce is very unlikely. So we're very lucky to have a guy like Isaac Garendo. And I do think that his vision is still kind of adjusting, right? Because as a non-starter in college, you can't expect a guy to have great vision going into the NFL, right? That's a huge adjustment. It's not the same. And Isaac Garendo with more carries might be not only fun to watch, but we might see some like 20, 30-yard burst plays, just like we saw with Mostert when we gave Mostert a chance. Ryan, what about you? What do you think about Garendo?
I think the thing with Garendo, it's not necessarily an issue of like not having confidence. I think this game he proved that he has what it takes to, like you said, be a solid RB3 on the team. And even you could even say Patrick Taylor looked good out there too as an RB4 or even like more depth piece out there. He had some powerful runs and he held his own too. However, the thing that concerns me is that given the context that this is an RB3, that yes, we do have confidence in him, but the reality is that we're going to be playing the Chiefs next week. We're going to be playing the Dallas Cowboys, albeit they did look terrible today.
Trash.
So we'll see how that one goes after next week. But heading in, they are still the Dallas Cowboys. And we're not sure the status of Jordan Mason. It would be nice to have him back for this week and, moving forward. However, I would be interested to see how Garendo does. I agree with you. We have the confidence. I think heading in, the skepticism that we even had about him was, can he understand the zone schemes that we have, that Kyle Shanahan likes to run, the 49ers like to run? And the answer at first seemed like no. So that's why we were a little hesitant. And I think a lot of people were at first. But the opportunity is in front of you now. And it's one of those things like, okay, we hope the lights aren't going to be too bright if Garendo's name has to be called. But I think the confidence, we'll take that into this week and we'll let it ride. We'll see how it goes. He almost got 100 yards this past game. He slid. He could have maybe gotten that 100 for sure. If he could break 100 this next game against the Chiefs, that would definitely be crazy, but a good kind of crazy.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with him sliding. I think he got tripped up. I think that's I don't know if that was an intentional slide. And then, yeah, I don't think it was. And for a guy that runs a 4.3 to get caught like that is disturbing to me. But Tommy, I would disagree with you. I think if we do lose Mason, that's a huge drop off. When I say Grindo reminds me of Mostert, I think mainly in the explosiveness that it can happen, right? If it's everything's blocked up right, he can make that explosive play. Mason's going to give you 5-6 yards to carry most plays. Even if a hole's not there, he's going to push forward for 3 to 4 yards. I don't see that from Grindo, but what I do see from Grindo is as a change of pace back, he can provide the explosiveness just like he did. I mean, he had 99 yards rushing, but that was a 76-yard run he had. So if you take that away, he had 9 carries for 30 or 23 yards. So nothing impressive. But what I did see, like I said, upright, explosive, brings that element to the game that the Niners don't have without McCaffrey and Jordan Mason doesn't have. On that long run he had to start the game, right? McCaffrey's probably gone for a touchdown. Mostert's for sure gone. But Mason's not going to break an 80-yard touchdown because he doesn't have the speed for it. So I just think Garindo brings that explosiveness where if you feed him enough, I think 10 carries is perfect. Just give him an opportunity to where if everything's blocked up perfectly, he can make a play.
Yeah,
Another
right.
thing in this... Oh, go ahead. Oh, I was going to say another thing is, in the red zone, we've been struggling in the red zone. And, this week, I think we were 3 for 5, which is a better percentage. Kittle had a huge impact in the red zone. But I think that's where a guy like Garindo can bring us a little more versatility because he can be effective in the passing game a little more than Jordan Mason. And so I think that's an area where, I would like to see Garindo featured more in the red zone, not only as a runner, but as a pass catcher. And I think, this week we did score 3 out of 5, attempts in the red zone for touchdowns, which is an improvement for the past couple of weeks. But that's an area where we do need to improve. And honestly, that's the difference in this game compared to the last 2 divisional games against the Rams and the Cardinals, where we executed in the red zone, and those last 2 games we didn't. And we should be 5-1 right now, but we're not because of red zone deficiency. So are you guys feeling more comfortable after this week? Maybe they figured out Kittle being the red zone target, or do you think we have some more struggles ahead in the red zone?
Well, I mean, I think patterns repeat themselves, right? I think we're going to struggle in the future. The Chiefs' defense is no joke. I don't think coming up next week that we're going to be able to play the same. I think the Chiefs' defense is much better than Seattle's defense, right? Historically, we always kind of choke in the red zone to kick a field goal, but I do think Arendo with more carries could show us more upside. That's kind of my take is he just doesn't have enough experience, right? Again, he wasn't a starter in college. We're asking him to come into the game, an NFL game with high expectations to produce like Christian McCaffrey. We're not going to get that. But if we can get something close, right, with more carries, like you said, 10 carries, 10, 12, 15 carries would be awesome. We're going to find out next week, though, because I don't think Jordan Mason is going to play. So that was one thing. Patrick Taylor Jr., though, did give me a little bit of confidence that worst case scenario, if he has to be RB1, we could still run our offense because he showed that he can do enough to allow us to still play the game that we want to. In the red zone, one thing I saw, again, I'm going to be the first person to bring it up. I'm glad you guys didn't take this route first. But seeing Juszczyk and Kittle be able to jump into the end zone, fans jump into the back of the end zone with their fans and give the ball to their wife, talk to their wives, jumping in and have that moment. That was one of the best moments in NFL I've ever watched. I mean, that never happens. You guys have watched football forever. How many times does a player score a touchdown and get to jump in and then hug their wife immediately? I mean, I haven't seen it very often, right? It's like a Lambeau leap. But we did it and the best part was we did it in Seattle. That's so disrespectful. Like, it's so awesome to watch. But I think that what we've done in the red zone in Seattle, we need to repeat in the future, right? Looking at Kittle, the best part about this is now there's film. Niners are like, oh, or any team that watches Niners film is looking at it going, oh, the Niners are going to target Kittle. So guess what? We don't target Kittle. Maybe we target Ayuk. We do something a little bit different and we change it up. But I thought that was a solid improvement from where we have been in the red zone. So while Jordan Mason is likely out for 1 to 2 weeks, it's going to be interesting to see what Kyle Shanahan does as a play caller. I am hoping we do still see a little bit of production, though, from George Kittle, because so far he has not had like a hip injury or a toe injury or a shoulder injury, knock on wood. But we might not necessarily need Mason if we can still make those same kind of play calls. But I do think that the defense will scheme a little bit different next week. We talked about this before the pod. Steve Magnola is going to have a chance to really dial up against the Niners' red zone plan based off what happened against Seattle. But in the Seattle game, I mean, we saw the offense do stuff that we haven't seen in a long time, right? Brock Purdy threw for multiple touchdowns. I think he has 3 touchdowns. Brock hasn't had over 1 or 2 for a long time. So hopefully ESPN analysts don't go super crazy and talk Brock Purdy up too much, right? We need the world to almost still kind of sleep on Brock Purdy. Otherwise, the defensive game plan is going to change. But at the end of the day, I don't know if it matters. Again, Brock Purdy's ability to extend plays. I saw a stat. Larry Krueger talked about a stat where if you were to break down Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuels, Ayuk, and Brock Purdy in their 10-yard split, Brock Purdy beats them in the first 10 yards. He actually has one of the highest acceleration rates in the first 10 yards sprinting out of any player in the NFL. I think it was 1.41 is his
So he
stat
beats
line.
Tyreek Hill. It's faster than Tyreek Hill.
He's faster than Tyreek Hill in the first 10 yards. And it almost makes you go, well, there's no wonder he can escape. There's no wonder he has escapability. But it's between that and his football IQ, makes me so confident in Brock Purdy being able to continue to do the same kind of production. It doesn't matter who's playing him because you can't, no defensive end can run as fast as him, right? I mean, we're talking about defensive ends in the NFL that run 4.5s. That's faster than all pocket quarterbacks, but Brock Purdy runs a 1.41 10-yard split. You're never going to touch him. And that's what we're seeing. He's way fast. We, as 49er fans, had nightmares about Russell Wilson. Brock Purdy's significantly faster at getting away from tackles. I mean, it's not even close. And so I think that moving forward, we're okay. But yeah, as we're talking about the offense, right? I mean, I think Brock Purdy is finally, it's a good and a bad thing. We're going to see the media adjust and talks on Monday, going into next week especially, are going to be so heavy against Brock Purdy not being able to do it, but the stats don't lie. And I'll bring this up for our fellow sports bettor fans. There was some stupid bet on Underdog. 3.5 rushing attempts for Brock Purdy. Over under. I took the
Easy
over.
yeah.
He's going to run more than 4 times every game. And then same thing with the rushing stats. They're putting him at 13 and a half over under. Come on. Brock has literally ran for 30 to 50 yards a game. And the best part about when Brock scrambles, it's a high football IQ play. It's for a first down. It's to gain yardage and go out of bounds, stop the clock. The way he runs, it's not like when Lamar runs. Lamar runs, you're okay, he's running, he's doing his thing. I expect Lamar to get 50, 60 yards a game. No, Brock Purdy, no one's expecting him to do it still. I don't know why. But again, he has a faster 10-yard split than what would you say, 98% of the NFL? Easy. I feel like the NFL might start to adjust the more we talk about it. I'd love for that to be from the 49er station. It's not going to be, but I think we're going to start getting a little bit more attention. Defenses can try to adjust, but can you adjust? Can you adjust to someone that's that quick? I don't think so. I think Brock Purdy is finally solidifying himself as the top 5 quarterback that we have talked him up to be for as long as he's even been a Niner. I think we were talking him up when he was an undrafted guy. So, but yeah, the offense looks amazing. What do you guys think about the defense?
I'll try to make this fast. I thought the defense did pretty good, all things considered. It was unfortunate to see Talanoa Hufanga go down and to be placed on IR, which was kind of the reason why Mustafa had to come in and step up and make that big play, that big interception that we love to see. However, I'm hesitant to really reel in this win because of who we have to face in the coming week. However, given the Seattle game in itself, I am really happy with the defense. It seemed like we were putting a lot of pressure on Geno Smith. He couldn't get the passes off that he needed to get. And like you guys said earlier, the rookies are kind of the big story on the defensive end, making 2 big plays, some critical plays even, that really helped turn the game around. So it was nice to see them get the reps they need in for all intents and purposes, a must-win game. So for that, I'm really happy. And I'm hoping that we can use this as a positive building block for the D coordinator, and that could help get him some confidence moving forward, because we were criticizing him a lot, the play calling, the defense, and in general. However, we have a big opponent ahead, so I'm hoping we can use this momentum and carry it forward.
Yeah, the defense played pretty well. I mean, they gave up 17 points, right? Because 7 of those points came from special teams on the kickoff return. And so they played pretty well, in my opinion. On first watch of the game, I was like, okay, where's Bosa? Why is he not getting sacks? But then you hear the stats after the game where he had 14 pressures, and I think he even was kind of the guy that forced the throws on both those interceptions, getting near Geno and made Geno throw an off-target pass. But the thing that is still a glaring weakness in this defense, and if we don't get it figured out in this next kind of mini bye week, is Devondre Campbell. And I hate to keep calling the guy out. Like, I sound like a broken record, but like, the guy is a liability on defense. I watched the first quarter of the football game before I went to my football practice. And then I came home and I watched the rest of the game after knowing the outcome, which was a fun experience. But the first quarter of the game, I had like 5 notes on Devondre Campbell getting either blocked, burnt in coverage, or missing tackles. Like, the guy is, I hate that, like, he's a professional athlete. He's way better at football than me, obviously. But he's no longer a piece that you can have there on a starting defense that's looking to make a run at the Super Bowl. And Devondre Campbell is continually getting picked on in pass game, in run game. He cannot run sideline to sideline. And if he's out there on the field come Sunday against the Chiefs, with Andy Reid having 2 weeks to devise a game plan against the 49ers defense, Travis Kelce is going to have 15 catches for 175 yards and 3 touchdowns, because he can't cover Travis Kelce, let alone he can't cover Dominic Pooney if Pooney was running routes, and he's not even on the different team. Devondre Campbell cannot cover me if I was running a route. He cannot cover anybody that's athletic in space. He can't make a tackle in space. He can't get off a block. It's just, to me, is like, why is he still on the field? So for me, this defense, it was a good performance against the Seahawks. They only gave up 17 points. Great. But Devondre Campbell needs to be replaced, and he needs to be replaced right now. Whether it's D. Winters, whether it's Tatum Bethune, whether it's Jalen Graham, Devondre Campbell needs to be replaced, because the guy is a liability. And I promise you guys, if he's on the field against the Chiefs on Sunday, Andy Reid is going to pick him apart like he's at a park picking cherries and eating. I don't know. It's going to be embarrassing. It's going to be frustrating. And Fred Warner cannot make up for the fact that his partner there at linebacker cannot cover a soul. And so for me, the defense played well, but Devondre Campbell has had 6 games now to prove that his worth on the team, and his worth on the team is benched or cut, because he is not cutting it as a San Francisco 49ers linebacker next to Fred Warner, who's playing like the defensive player of the year.
It blows my mind that he's still starting. And there's 2 players on defense that I'm going to call out. Isaac Yiadom, who we've talked about, is a liability at corner. If we're playing the Chiefs next week, who get the most PI penalties that aren't really PIs, and we watch Yiadom, who had a few against DK that should have been PIs that weren't called, and they were only not called because it's the Niners Seahawks, right? Same thing with Campbell. I mean, Campbell needs to be off the field, exactly what Mark said. Can't agree more. Don't want to reiterate the same point that he made because I don't want to make it redundant, but think about it like this. If you can't make up your play next to the best defensive player, Fred Warner has the most interceptions in the NFL since 2019 at middle linebacker. If you look terrible in pass coverage next to a player like that, you're not worth starting. It's so simple. It's so easy to come up with. I wrote one note, though, not about Yiadom and not about Campbell. Niners defense versus bunch. How have we not figured out how to play against bunch? It is an NFL theme. If you play the Niners, you put your receivers in bunch and they don't know what the F to do. It's that simple. I don't know if you guys saw the same thing, but I picked it up on it was like in the late second quarter. I wrote that note down. Saw it in the third quarter, saw it in the fourth quarter. We made no halftime adjustments. The only criticism that I have for Sorensen's calling was bunch defense. I don't get it. How hard is it to play against bunch? If you played high school football on the West Coast, guess what you saw a lot of the time? Bunch formation. Because it's easy to mess with the defense if you put 3 receivers or 3 tight ends or 2 tight ends and a receiver, whatever you want to do. If you have 3 people out wide and you have to cover 3 people, the Niners are terrible. And we looked bad again. Sean McVay ate us up in that game, and that's why we lost. It happened again against the Cardinals. That's why they came back. It started to happen again in the Seahawks game, and I'm watching it, and I go, what is going on? Like, why have we not figured this out? This is basic football. Like, you should have a plan for bunch defense, especially if it's your weak point, right? We're not talking about just like players. We're talking about scheme. That's been our weak point, I think, is as soon as another team puts bunch, and I can guarantee you, Andy Reid is going to come out next week with bunch multiple times. And you got Travis Kelce as part of that bunch. So you do 2 receivers and Kelce in 3 wide. Niners are going to look like they don't know what they're doing, and it's going to be a bad night. It's going to be a terrible night. We're not going to have a good situation. But that was what really irked me was it wasn't, it was beyond Campbell not covering, Yadam only being successful because they didn't call PIs, right? It's like your typical corner experience where they after the play, it's a pass breakup or an incomplete pass. And the corner comes off the game and they're like, yeah, I stopped it. It's like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. You had a PI and they just didn't call it. Like, that's what happens with Yadam on every play. So one thing I did like, though, is I think we talked about it a little bit between you two and myself, is the rookies' plays between Mustafa and Green make this draft class. So you have Mustafa, you have Green, you have Pooney. We got 3 people that are super successful. For the first time in a long time, we've had a great draft class be successful in their first year. And we get our boy, many men survive gunshots, Ricky Pearsall coming back, who I think is actually going to be really solid with a guy like Brock Purdy who's throwing dimes, throwing people in coverage. If Pearsall gets a little separation and he becomes a wide receiver 4, 3, right? We have Debo, who's playing okay this year. He had a good game fantasy-wise, but if you guys watched the same game I did, I don't think Debo was as good as people are making him out to be. He caught passes where he was open, right? He did have that juggle pass, where Purdy
My
tossed
first
it.
drive of the game, yeah, that was a
Purdy
great catch.
tossed it a little too high and he juggled it. That was great. But besides that play, everything that Debo did was kind of just he was open. It wasn't really a good play. It wasn't really something spectacular. So I'm hoping when Pearsall comes back, you add the extra receiver in there, like Pearsall. That's solid. But again, for the defense, what really pissed me off is we still have no plan for bunch formation. And I don't get it. It's so simple. My highest football experience is playing high school football in California. And I can watch a game and dissect that immediately. Every time another team does bunch against us, our defense falls apart. Do you guys see the same thing?
Yeah, I definitely see the same thing. It's very frustrating, and it's something that you would hope can be figured out really quickly, and also something that I would hope would be figured out on our end of the field on offense when we're in the red zone. I was talking to my dad, and when they threw that kind of fade route to Debo, and they got broken up, and they were in the bunch formation, it's like, why not drag Debo across from the outside, crossing the 2 receivers on the inside, whether it's Jawan and Ayuk, whoever it is you put out there, Kittle. Why not, have those 2 receivers doing some type of route and then have Debo slanting underneath the 2 of them, trying to put their corners in a situation where our corners can't cover. So that is a weakness to me, in my opinion. Just our pass defense in general. If we can't get a pass rush, we're in trouble. And we're paying a lot of money. And, this is something that, after watching the game, knowing the outcome of the game, it's a little different. But during the game, when I'm kind of checking my phone at practice. I have it on, and I'm watching. I'm like, where is Nick Bosa? Where are the Nick Bosa sacks? I'm tired of hearing PFF. He's a no one PFF edge rusher in the game. Next gen stats, he gets 14 pass pressures in the game. Like, okay, that's great. I understand that. But every time I turn on the Steelers, TJ Watt's getting sacks left and right, causing havoc in the backfield. Every time I turn on the Lions, Hutchinson's getting sacks left and right, causing havoc in the backfield. When I turn on the Raiders, because I am one of the few Niner fans that actually roots for the Raiders, I watch the Raiders. Max Crosby getting sacks, hitting the quarterback. Nick Bosa, I think in the last 3 years, has had the most almost sacks in the history of the NFL. He almost gets there 99% of the time. Almost gets there. And then every once in a while, he'll get a sack. So I don't know if it's because he's so dominating of a presence that the quarterbacks just get the ball out before he gets there. I don't know what it is. And the whole I want to see Nick Bosa get sacks. I understand he plays hard. He's a hard worker. I understand that. But when you're getting paid $35 million a year, much like we talk about Brandon Ayuk on the offensive end, your job is to get sacks as a defensive end of the San Francisco 49ers. And you are having way too many almost sacks. Do you guys have kind of the same opinion of Bosa, or do you respect his presence in the PFF and the next gen stats and all of that as a top pass rusher in the game?
No, I feel the same, and I've always kind of felt that way. Most of the games this season, like he is an X factor. He's a captain. He needs to be the one setting the tone. You know, he's a quiet guy, so he's the one who needs to really set the tone with his play. If he explodes and has a big game, the defense is going to follow right behind him. So that's just the kind of player Nick Bosa is. He's a game-changing player, and he could really swing things, and he could help garner momentum for the 49ers whenever he does make said sacks. But unfortunately, they're kind of far and few between.
I hate to say this, I'm kind of in the middle on Bosa, because I watched the game live, and all right, so on Mark's side, Bosa was going against their right tackle most of the game, not the left tackle, who everyone in the NFL knows is supposedly being their best tackle. So he's going against the second best tackle, and putting pressure on the quarterback is amazing. But again, you're absolutely right, Mark. If we look at, TJ Watt is the perfect comparison. Everyone says, like, TJ Watt, Nick Bosa, all these players are the best in the NFL. Well, TJ Watt gets a sack. Bosa doesn't. TJ Watt goes against the left tackle. Bosa didn't go against the left tackle against the Seahawks. It wasn't until the fourth quarter until they actually switched it up and had Bosa play against the left tackle, and then they started blitzing on the opposite side, which was a smart move by Sorensen. But at the same time, if you're paying Bosa as much as we're paying him, you're expecting him to have that production no matter where he's lined up. And we just didn't see that. So, look, coming into next week, we're going to be going against Patrick Mahomes, and this is something that the 49er fans should have a little bit of anxiety for. I know I do, because we've lost 2 Super Bowls against this team. Kyle Shanahan has not, I don't think, ever beat Steve Magnola, an offensive coordinator, head coach, against him as defensive coordinator. So we're going to be looking at a matchup that's not in our favor. Plus, I will bring up one thing that's unsaid, but I need to say it. Chiefs are going to get the Tom Brady calls. Chiefs are going to get, I guess we can call them Patrick Mahomes calls now, right? Because Tom Brady doesn't play anymore. So going into next week, I'm a little worried, but at the same time, I need to be positive, and we need to be positive as Niner Station fans. So can Nick Bosa produce next week without penalty calls? Can Nick Bosa actually provide the same pressures? We all know that Nick Bosa is going to be choked, held, horse-collared, you name it, without penalties coming our way. And we're going to get Deommodore Lenoir, and we're going to get Isaac Yadam, and we're going to get all these people getting PIs that aren't really PIs. They're just playing football. But at the same time, we have to expect what the NFL wants to show or produce, I should say, as a primetime game. So for us going into the next week, Niner Station, thank you. If you've listened this long, please subscribe to our station if you haven't already. Like this video about the Seahawks. And let's just be hopeful for next week, and we'll talk about it in our upcoming pod. We're going to get a deeper dive. But with that, guys, I think that we should close this out. Bang, bang.
Niner gang.
Bench Devondre Campbell gang.